The cadets, this time the Rotax engined cadets. These are the Micromax finalists. We've got 11 karts on the grid already there in the collecting area and ready to be released. Harris Barber, he's been the driver to beat in Micromax. Logan Rolfe, the little chatterbox that was in here causing trouble earlier, he starts alongside. This is going to be a cracking final with these names that I'm about to read down. So Harris Barber, Logan Rolfe, that's your front row. Second row, Ralph Martin, Lewis Kokotti. Third row, Buddy Hugo, Noah Wicklow. Ethan Lloyd and Freddie Blackshaw share row 4. Row 5 is Zach Andrew and Freddie Walker, and Jensen Darlow will start in 11th spot and rounding off an 11 kart field. While we wait for these to be released, gives us an opportunity to talk about 2025.
It does. We announced it for anybody. Don't go back right now into the lunch break, but we announced it because we've got a superb final coming up. But 6 rounds for 2025, starting at your home turf of Warden Law.
We kick all right to Warden Law in March. Is bring your coats, bring your big coats as well. 22nd, 23rd of March, Warden Law, a track everybody loves. The facilities going to be even better than the last time you visited it. The garage complex, the viewing area on top of the garage complex, that you're going to have tremendous views across the track for all the parents and mechanics to be able to nip up the stairs to. That's all going to be completed by March. Part of it might even be completed by the time we get there in November, but fingers crossed. Interesting one for me, round 2, 26th, 27th of April. We go back to a very, for me, old school track, Shennington, old school airfield circuit. It's where I did some of my first races. It might be an airfield track, but for me, it gave more than just your average. For me, it was always faster and more interesting, dare I say it, than places like Felton in Northumberland, which isn't there anymore, and even Fullbeck for a point.
Yeah, it's a very fast-flowing airfield circuit, which you don't always get when your constraints are based on that. There's a lot of those of you who don't know, there's a lot of airfield circuits in the country. Shennington, Fullbeck, Kimbolton are all based off that, and that's mainly because karting as a whole in the UK was sort of brought over at the time by a lot of airmen.
US airmen, wasn't it? Yeah,
American airmen.
Brought all sorts of engines onto frames and off they went.
And racing them round the runways in the in the mid-40s with hay bales and things like that. Luckily, we've developed things a little bit since then in terms of safety, but as our micros make their way around, these drivers next year after Shennington, they'll be going to GYG, the roller coaster of a circuit, and then the big one for me, Joe, the jewel in the crown of UK karting.
We need to come back to this calendar in between our races, David, because there's a lot to talk about. Let's leave it at Shennington because we've got a lot to talk about with going back to Gleneagles and the rest of the calendar. Right now, though, we've got our Micromax final about to go ahead again, 12 minutes and 1 lap. And right now, the Tony Kart of Harris Barber up against the synergy of Logan Rolfe. That's your front row. And Harris Barber has proved to be very, very hard to beat. We did confirm that Harris is a Tony Kart driver?
Yes, he is. That's correct. With Strawberry. And away we go for 12 minutes and 1 lap of action. And Logan Rolfe has to work hard to hold on to second place there as he came under pressure from Ralph Martin. And I think that's Ethan Lloyd in the orange helmet, I think in the 66, up into 4th place. Indeed, it is in front of the S-plate of Lewis Kokotti. Then it's Buddy Hugo as they run down the hill towards Ashby.
That's a cracking start then for Ethan Lloyd. Started 7th on the grid, and he's up to 4th place, so he's made up 3 places in a matter of just a couple of corners. In true cadet fashion, they are slotting in behind one another, and a change for second.
Change for the lead as well, sorry,
Joe.
Change
for the lead for Logan Rolfe.
From first down into third. I think he made a bit of a mistake in the left-hander at Wilkins. Rolfe down the inside. Ralph Martin close enough in that 34. The reigning Mighty Bambino champion moves up to second place.
And he just looked for that opportunity that presented itself in front of him, and he went through the door that was slammed open by Logan Rolfe. Now then, can Logan Rolfe hang on to this? They are together. Oh, and there's a move. Ralph Martin showing that this transition out of Bambinos, he's like a duck to water on the Micromax. And off he goes into the lead. And he's took Harris Barber with him.
Yeah, I was about to say, got the move done as well before he got to that stationary yellow flag as well. And then got a bit of luck because then nobody could get back past him at Ashby because there was a waved yellow, which has helped him now cement this lead. Harris Barber and Logan Rolfe, who had a bit of a fracas, you'll remember, 2 hours ago in the superheat, could well become preoccupied with each other here. We'll find out as this race unfolds.
What I love is Ralph Martin, having got into the lead, he then taps his helmet for everybody. Tap my helmet. Everybody stay behind me. Don't fight me. Look how much track he uses there, or how much curb he used there. Just keeping that momentum, letting the kart breathe at that very fast Oblivion and Crook Corner. You've got to let the kart breathe out onto the straight.
Ralph Martin will have a bit more pressure on his shoulders than what he's maybe used to. Now, he's won 2 Mighty Bambino Championships. The first one I was lucky enough to call, where he had a superb battle all season with Ansel Murray, and then he made himself a double champion last year, but he's doing twice the speed now, and he's going to be under pressure from Harris Barber, who has a look, but not really commits to a move on the run to the boot.
Yeah, he's just kind of checking his options, it seems, isn't he, for what's going to come. I mean, still 9.5 minutes of this final left, so just checking out where the perhaps the strengths and the weaknesses are of the drivers ahead of them. These three beginning to break away now. Martin, Barber and Rolfe. They're beginning to lose Kirkcaldy, Lloyd and Hugo. They are and there's 4 karts there. Buddy Hugo being challenged by Noah Wicklow just off the screen, I saw. Meanwhile, we'll continue watching this battle for the lead, because I think, David, Harris Barber is just lining something up here.
Possibly so. Lewis Kirkcaldy on the previous lap got past Ethan Lloyd. Now he's got a bit of space. Space, though, is almost down the inside of Ralph Martin. I'm interested to see if this continues squabbling, whether Lewis Kirkcaldy in the S-Plate, the Scottish champion, can close this gap at the front for these three, because he's not a million miles back. At the moment he is, but as soon as they start scrapping, as Martin takes a bit of curb there, Harris Barber with a look over the shoulder to see whether it was safe to overtake, and he slots back in. Yeah,
they're going to slipstream one another all the way up the straight to Christmas Corner. Let's see if any of them have got momentum enough to challenge. And Harris Barber down the inside of Ralph Martin, around the outside, Ralph Martin. Now that is brave. This driver, straight out of Bambinos and into Micromax, that was a brave move to stick with it and just sit there side by side, wheel-to-wheel action all the way through Christmas Corner. That was very brave and very, very good driving from Ralph Martin.
Absolutely. Micromax drivers from 8 to 12 years old, and Ralph Martin on the younger side of that, 8 years old, makes the trip up from High Wycombe in Buckinghamshire to lead this Micromax final. We're still not even at half race distance, and he goes slightly wide through the boot. Harris Barber elects not to put the nose down the inside. I imagine that would be a different story in about 6 minutes' time. But Martin continues to lead, and at the moment he is holding that pressure from Harris Barber. Yes, he's going wide, but he's carrying that. That's not a mistake. He's carrying speed at the first couple of corners.
Harris Barber and Logan Rolfe playing a waiting game, it seems, not needing to challenge at all, not even having a look to see with where, you know, what the air feels like outside of the slipstream of that leading Ralph Martin. Ralph Martin on the orange kart, the green and white overalls of Harris Barber, and then the light lime green and blue overalls of the Synergy factory race team of Logan Rolfe. They are together on the back straight, and is that Ralph Martin having to defend a little bit there, David?
I think it was. He had a slightly slow run out of Osiers and then had to defend his position. He has a very different line through the chicane here, and it sends him in deep, and that makes it look like Harris Barber's drawing alongside, but I think it gives him good exit speed. Wide he goes again, and Harris Barber continues to just ride in the wheel tracks of Ralph Martin at the moment. This one, I get the feeling here, Joe, it's just a case of feeling out, because particularly for Barber and Rolfe, they don't know a huge amount about Ralph Martin. He's not been in front of them all weekend, and they won't have raced him previously either. So this is a completely new script for the two behind him, who are far more experienced in terms of racing as well. Barber was in Iami Bambino a few years back, and now he makes a move up to the boot. Ralph Martin slams it shut.
It's that faster line, outside line. Can I just mention that we have just clicked by half distance? The intensity of this racing, absolutely nose to tail racing for the top three here. And Harris Barber just slotting out a little bit of a different line towards Oblivion, but they all come together out of Crook and on up the straight towards Christmas. No reason to pop out of any slipstream. They just sit in the wheel tracks of the leader. And I just get this feeling that Harris Barber's just waiting to pick his moment.
Yeah, I just
get that feeling.
Yeah, he came over the line. He took his hand off the wheel. I'm not sure whether that was just to free his hand up or whether he feels that Ralph Martin is being a little bit defensive at times. But I don't feel that Martin's being overly defensive. If he makes a slight misjudgment, and I think Martin doesn't feel that he's not as quick out of Osiers, he's just parking it. But he's not white lining it. He's just putting the cart where he needs to. That's the line through that final corner where he carries more speed on entry but loses a bit on exit. But doesn't seem to be hampering him too much.
A little bit of a variation of opinion about to clatter across that Nouvelle chicane curbing, isn't it? We get a variation as there's a challenge for second as the Synergy driver Logan Rolfe goes down the inside of Strawberry's Harris Barber, and they kind of duke it out through Inkermans. And then by the time they get down the hill to the right-hander at Ashby's, it's very much Logan Rolfe in second place. Now, Logan Rolfe's been watching Harris Barber on the tail of Ralph Martin. He's been taking it all in, been learning all about where maybe Ralph Martin is a little bit weak. And if he can just get on with it without Harris Barber hassling him, he might even be able to have a go for the lead.
I've got the feeling that Logan Rolfe isn't going to be quite as patient as Harris Barber was in trying to find a way past Ralph Martin. His problem now is that Harris Barber is going to be all over the back of him. Let's see whether he gets a good run. He's not going to be close enough this time, I'm fairly sure of it, on Ralph Martin. As
it's funny that Logan Rolfe, now in second place, ahead of Harris Barber. Now he taps his helmet, say, right, mate, I'm on the second step of the podium. Come and don't fight with me. Just help me catch the leader and take the first step of the podium. I'm sure it's all a very gentlemanly agreement that's going to just be torn up at the 2-minute bell.
Yes, absolutely. That's karting. Good run again by Logan Rolfe. This time Ralph Martin realises he doesn't have to defend quite as much. Again, we're going to see that differing line. He turns in slightly earlier, and we'll see whether
they're all pretty similar there, weren't they?
Yeah.
I think they've all got the memo. This timing, just smashing your cart over that curb. And look at that, Ralph Martin. He's definitely a little bit quicker out of the chicane and onto the straight. And Logan Rolfe struggling to get on terms. And there's Harris Barber just having a peek down the inside, not enough to get alongside. And Logan Rolfe continues the chase in second place there.
Ralph Martin leads, but it's anything but cut and dry with 2.5 minutes to go. Logan Rolfe and Harris Barber are risking becoming preoccupied with each other with a few minutes to go. With Barber tried that half move down the inside of Logan Rolfe at Christmas Corner. It's going to be as you were through the boot. It's all about getting it lined up for that run on Ralph Martin, who since he's got to the front has looked, I wouldn't say comfortable in position, but certainly comfortable in his cart.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually. If these two continue to go side by side through Oblivion, that's going to play right into the hands of RCE's Ralph Martin, who will lead, and a challenge for second as Harris Barber comes back at Logan Rolfe, and a change for second. We've now got Barber taking up the challenge of catching and overtaking Ralph Martin. Look at the gap that's enabled Ralph Martin to pull.
Yeah, now Logan Rolfe's got a decision to make here. It's, does he push onto the back of Harris Barber and try and get back onto Ralph Martin, bearing in mind that Logan Rolfe and Harris Barber have shared the victories so far this weekend. Ralph Martin has been third throughout this weekend in the heats, and this is the first time he's led, and now the pressure's going to start to ramp up on that 34 as Harris Barber closes in on the back of Ralph Martin in front of him.
Well, if he does continue that momentum, not just onto the bumper, but then past him, and he looks menacing, doesn't he? He looks like all bets are off. We're inside the final minute now as we head towards Ashby's. He's going to be looking for that opportunity to take that lead from Ralph Martin. Ralph Martin looks over his right shoulder. There's nobody there. That's because he was across your left-hand shoulder. Here we come down the inside of part of Chapman, and that was an audacious move by Harris Barber. He didn't want to wait any longer. He didn't want to give Logan Rolfe a chance to come back at him.
did not, and Harris Barber slides through. Ralph Martin tried to defend it and then decided halfway through that defence that if he stayed on the outside, he was probably going to get run out onto the grass.
Here we go again then. And the door left open. It's a late apex through Chapman. That's because you've got that right-hand curb. It acts as a bit of a kink, so you take a late apex at that one. And by doing so, you leave the door naturally open. And that's what Harris Barber was wanting. It's going to be the one lap to go next time by for these three. And the question is, David, can Ralph Martin find the pace to get by him another time? It's a big ask.
He's in the hardest position here because he's got absolutely everything to lose, with Logan Rolfe right behind trying to take advantage as they run up towards the boot. As Joe said, it will be the last lap board as they go round. I think Harris Barber there almost defending fresh air. He went a cart width in and it has slowed him slightly, and them differing lines almost see Ralph Martin jump straight on top of the number 12. Final lap is on the overhead gantry for Micromax.
We've seen how quick Ralph Martin can be through this section here, and he's not using all of the curb like he was earlier, and maybe that's because he's got Logan Rolfe closing down in it, but they're still together. We can't drag ourselves away from this three-car battle. We've been with it from the very outset because these three have been absolutely nose to tail for the duration of this 12-minute final. 12 minutes and one lap, and it's going to go all the way to the flag. Onto the back strip for the final time, David, and towards the boot. Is there going to be a challenge?
Ralph Martin, I don't think he's quite close enough to make a move on Harris Barber this time round. The final opportunity goes, and Harris Barber comes out of the final corner, looks over his shoulder and gesticulates in elation as he takes the victory from Ralph Martin and Logan Rolfe. That's your top three. It's been the top three all weekend, really, in our Micromax class. Harris Barber and Logan Rolfe sharing the heat victories, and Harris Barber will stand on the top step of the podium here at Whilton Mill.